swivel was empty. It's not good, is it, folks? Yeah, incredible amounts of thread lock on these bolts holding the stub axle. Now the swivel, when you top it up, fills up to about here, so I would have expected that bowl to have a lot more in there than that, and obviously this thing's empty as well. CV joint's in good order, but I think we've got this in time, really. Top your swivels up, folks, in the service. Right, once you've undone the 6 8mm bolts on the back here that hold the sweep seal retainer into position, it should come off. There we are, it comes off. And then top pin comes out. I've already looked at this, by the way. This thing is utterly shagged out. So, look at the wear on this swivel pin. It's probably original to the car. They do need changing from time to time, folks, and then obviously you just set them all up again. I think that the swivel pin, coupled with the lack of oil in the hub, coupled with a number of other factors, including the wheel bearing being slightly loose, have contributed to the amount of end float, the play at the tyre in this thing, which is then, I think, because the brake, when the brake pads would have clamped the disc, then that would have taken up any play in the wheel bearing, okay, because it's holding it tight. But then if there's play in the swivel, then that might have caused some in and out movement via the pins, the swivel pins themselves. Possibly, I don't know. I'm theorising at the moment, basically just trying to think logically around the problem of why this ABS was kicking in. Basically, not randomly, because it was more or less every single time you came to a complete dead stop. You're going at walking pace, then the ABS would kick in and the pedal would sink to the floor. Otherwise, it was fine. Right, now, this swivel should now come off in my hand, so to speak. Top pin's out, retainer's off, sweep seal's off, and there's the swivel. Okay? Now, what are we looking at the top here? So, let me just balance that in there. We have to give everything a fucking good clean anyway, because everything's covered in shite. There's the thrust washer. What's the thrust washer looking like? Yeah, that's shot. I'm pretty sure it should be a little bit more round than that. It's fucked. So the thrust washer goes to the top, the bearing goes in the bottom, and I think it's the thrust washer here that's given us the damage. Now, it's just going to be a case really of just cleaning this thing up. I will replace the sweep seal, I'll replace the thrust washer, I'll replace the top pin. We'll see what the bottom bearing is like. It should be alright actually. I'm hoping that the swivel housing retainer is in good order still. There's a special place in hell for people who put this much thread lock on a bolt. Why? Why do you need that amount of thread lock on there? Similarly, I'm struggling to get the bolts that are holding the swivel to the axle out because they're fucking swimming in it. Don't do this, folks. If you did this, like I say, there's a cold place in hell for you. Sorry, hot place in hell for you. Cold place in hell, that's weird, Richard. Right, now, let me just demonstrate here the problem that I'm encountering. So I put the 14mm spanner on there, and then I get my second longest spanner here, which fits over the 14, and leaning on it, and nothing. There we are, it's starting to turn. Now, I'll do this for about another 10 minutes, and eventually the bolt will turn enough that I can put my 14 ratchet on it. Fuck's sake. Fucking monkeys that work on cars, I tell you. You do not need this much bloody thread lock. Oh, fucking cretins. I mean, even now, even though it's started to move, that will not. These people are pricks. I think I should get off the fence and just tell people what I think about excessive use of thread lock. I'm sure, oh Jesus, I'm sure there are people out there shouting at the tellies, well, you know, don't want it to come undone. Well, why don't you fucking weld it together then? Jesus Christ. This is almost at the point now where the ratchet might start to work on it. Let's give it a go. And again, even with the ratchet on there, I can't do it without the extension on the spanner. Oh! I mean, that is ridiculous. That is turning a 10-minute job into an hour's job because some prick has put so much fucking thread lock on there that it just makes the job impossible. Oh, there we go. Right, now I could use my poor 14mm spanner . Are we out? We should be out. We're out. Just need to get the bolts out of the hole. Look, another one. Just why? Fucking knobbins, that's why. Yeah, that's fucked. That's one fucked swivel ball, that. That is one fucked swivel ball. There's no way is that going to retain a seal. Yeah, that's dead. Oh, dear. This job gets more fun by the minute. Oh, well, one of the bolts, I managed to round the splines on the end there with my poor old spanner, abused spanner, so I had to get Mr. Stilson on it. Here we are. This is most of the left-hand side now cleaned and ready for its kit. I'm going to put a Brett Park kit on there, DA3166G. G denotes that it is of OE quality. So that will be going back together at the weekend. And then I spent most of the afternoon shouting at this side. Yes, so we have a world of series bolts on this side. I've managed to get 6 of the 7 bolts from the hub undone. Nowhere near the level of Loctite. I can't get the sweep seal off the back here because all of these bolts, in fact one of them's broken already. Can't get the sweep seal off, so I can't get the stub axle, hub carrier off, so I can't access that. So I've been cutting it with a reciprocating saw. You can see I'm most of the way through it and then the fucking saw battery's gone flat. So yeah, I've been swearing at this quite a lot today. On the plus side, there was one stop in this side, so at least there was some lubrication. There was bugger all in the other side. It's not uncommon for this top bolt to seize up because basically it can go right the way through and into where the shock absorber goes. So I'm going to have to basically cut the head off it so I can get the stub axle out of the way, so I can get the so I can get the swivel and the swivel carrier out of the way, and then when I've done all that, then I can drill the fucking bolt out. Then I can work out how I'm going to get the sweep seal off the back. An easy job turns into a freaking week of work, I tell you, every bloody time. Here we are, gone 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. Well, these these bolts are slowly coming out. I tried all sorts of bits and bobs, but I really didn't want to be shearing them off because these are a bastard to drill out because they're only 1/4 inch and it's a blind hole that they're going into. So they're quite tricky to get out. So really you want to try and get these things out intact if you possibly can. Now basically, the best way that I can find of doing this is using one of these, one of these, and one of these. And allow me to demonstrate. Oh, and one of these. So first and foremost, let's get the housing hot. Standard expansion way of getting rid of these things. And this is how I've done the other 4 on here so far. A nice wee bit of heat. And see, the nut is already starting to heat up. So then I use this. I haven't got any flats on the nut, you see. So by banging the top of it, it's doing 2 things. First of all, it's making the head of the nut slightly fatter. And secondly, it's shocking the threads. Well, I'll see what happens now. So, got the 8mm spanner, which doesn't fit over the top, but it will do after I've tapped it on. Right, so now it's on, straight out, look at that. That, there's no way was that coming out before. I shall demonstrate. It's not coming out now. Let's try a slightly smaller socket in there. No, it doesn't want to come out. Well, it is coming out. It's loosening the thread. I just don't want to touch it because it's fucking hot. Here it comes. It's slowly coming out. Let's get that underneath there. I've got new bolts to go in here. They're just a standard UNF metric fixing, so it's not the end of the world. What size was that? That was 9mm. Just thinking about it. That's that one. The bolt, by the way, that I chopped off in order to get this fucker out. The thread was loose. Once the head had come off the other side of the swivel housing, yeah, it came out. So the problem I've got here is, first and foremost, the 8mm spanner just slips around on there, and I can bash that. Might work. Still loose on there. I'll try a, what's that, 5/16. Loose. There's no way. I tried the mole wrenches on it, and basically, if I put too much load into that, it's just going to shear that bolt off. Ho 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 ho. May actually find. No, it's not going to go yet. I think these are original to the car. This plate, retaining plate, is certainly tired. Monsieur Le Hammer. It's always the last one, by the way, that misbehaves. So people ask me how I get these fixings out. This is how I get these fixings out. The time and patience. If you find you're in a position where you're going to start chucking tools around, the best thing to do is to close the workshop doors and come back. Try that. 8mm spanner. Loose. There you go. That's all it needed. That was the one that wasn't undoing just now. Oh, that's my case, Your Honour. There we go. That's the last of those out of there. Still very warm. That is really warm. Get off. So now that can come off. That's the remains of the seal retainer. I didn't break it, it was broken already. Top pin can come out. Look at the wear on that. I mean, that is shot. You ever seen? I've never seen a ridge that bad on the swivel pin. That's fucked. Is that wear or is that a crack? I couldn't tell you. That's an ornament, that is. A swivel ball on this side, however, is it any good? Don't know until I clean it up. It's all a bit hot over it still. I'll tell you one thing, it's in damn sight better shape than it was on the other side. Makes me wonder, is it paint or is that, it's not chrome, it's not rusty either. It's very warm. Very warm indeed. Yeah, so this side is, it's weird. It's an axle of two halves, this. This looks like one of the black Teflon coated balls, but then why was every bloody fixing sealed solid on it? Quite why, I don't know. It's one of those things. Paradox, mysteries of the world. My box of oily rags here. Yeah, this looks like a Teflon ball. There's barely any rust on it. It's more than serviceable. I just assumed, actually, fucking great lump taken out of it there. I don't know what's caused that. Not me. The washer's in there. Thrust washer must be in the back of the pin still. Yeah, big wear there as well. Oh well, shit happens. Sweep seal's crap. And then I need to clean this all out. It's currently just fizzing away quietly to itself down here. So this is a Teflon ball. So why on earth would you put that in with an old thrust pin? Unless that is the world's finest Chinesium. I suspect that's an original pin that's gone back into the top of a new ball. Well, that's just fucked up, isn't it? That really is just fucked up. I don't quite know why you would do that. The amount of play on that is ridiculous. Wonders shall never cease. And then also, when the bolts that secure the swivel ball to the axle casing work out about 40 pence each, why? Why wouldn't you replace them? 7 aside. Just buy new ones. Don't wedge the old ones back in. Bloody lubed up to the shank with fucking... Yes, Richard, enough swearing. Right, okay, just going to clean this fella up now. Then I can start packing up. And there's the old bearing down there. Is that going to come off? Should come off. I need a little chisel just to sit behind it. There's still some heat in there. There's the bearing. Probably survive. I tend to replace these. I mean, they're pennies, these bearings. It's a standard kind of bearing for the front, for the lower swivel pin. I don't tend to change the lower swivel pin because it very rarely wears. Not seen one yet that's worn, and they're a bastard to get out, so I tend to leave them because obviously the centre section of the bearing stays still and it's the outer section that moves and wears. That's why I tend not to replace the lower pin. Saves yourself a whole load of bother. And also, look, there's a whole world of silicone and shit in here as well. So yeah, someone's very clearly been here. Done a beautiful job, I must say. Fucking beautiful. The wheel bearing's loose on this side, but that may not have necessarily been the person who did the swivel replacement, because I know that new discs went on a couple of years ago, and it looks like the wheel bearings have settled somewhat. Maybe they had new lube in them, maybe they just settled after that, I don't know. These things happen. Shit happens. Right, let's have a quick wipe out inside here. I'm just using a degreaser called +10, which I quite like. It is good at getting in here and getting all of the shit and everything out. It's not uncommon to find lumps of swarf inside these bloody things. Right, +10. And Mr. Brushy. Wife's toothbrush. I actually had melted recently. Better get it back to her. Clean it up before it goes back, don't worry. There'll be someone out there saying, you misogynist pig. Yes. Get a fucking sense of humour. Right, what I think I'll do here, because this is just like getting muddier and muckier because of the crap that's in the tray down here. I'm going to swap the tray. That's my tray that now needs cleaning up. That's the tray that was, until recently, grubby. We're not sitting in all the gloop and shite now. The part swivel housing kit, one complete box. I think it was DA3166G. There we are. DA3166G. G indicates OEM. The G is always the useful bit to buy whenever you're looking at parts. If the G part exists, buy it. And this came from Dingocroft. Now, what have we got in here? We've got gaskets. So we've got lower swivel pin gasket. Looks like we've got the drive plate, the stub axle, and the axle to swivel ball. Nice. We've got a thrust washer for the top swivel pin. We've got the ubiquitous swivel housing grease, the one shot. I actually quite like this stuff. Unless you're wading, this is stuff to go for. We have got the Cortico. Looks like that's the seal that goes inside the swivel ball. We have got top swivel pin, I'm going to guess. This is the one that was utterly shagged on this particular vehicle. Yes, we've got the thrust washer. That was the old one. Half the roller's missing out of it. Yeah, and that's the new one. Well, that helps, doesn't it? Hasn't got half the rollers missing out of it. Look. It's just fallen apart. It's utterly shagged. Utterly shagged. That can go in the recycle. So yes, that's all to do with the top swivel pin. We have got another seal. I can't remember where this one goes now. We'll find out in a minute. Sweep seal, again Cortico, twinlet and the retainer. A little pack of shims, because we're going to need that when we set the shims. The lower bearing, which sometimes I change and sometimes I don't. In this case, I'll change it because I'm putting a brand new swivel ball in. There it is, the bearing. Nice Timken lower bearing. And the swivel ball itself. Oh, we've got some more stuff down here. The swivel ball itself, and then we've got more seals. And that fella in there looks like the top swivel pin housing. So let's go through and assemble and show you what I do here. Right, let's put these retainers in. The bearing is probably the easier of the two to put in, because really that just needs to be tapped in. It needs to go in nice and level, of course, and I tend to use the old bearing as a sacrificial component when I'm tapping it in. Obviously you need to make sure that it does go in level. Just thinking about it. So it wants to go in like that. If he balls it up, by the way, you have to kind of like, it's not going in level or whatever, just use a punch on the other side and push it back out again. Once it starts to go in, it's in. There we are, beautiful. That is in. You can tell it's in. You can hear it's in. So it's on the bottom seat now. It needs to be seated right up against that lip. Otherwise what will happen is you'll be setting the preload up and then the bearing will push itself in further and you'll just end up with inconsistent readings. They'll be all over the bloody shop. So again, bearing not going anywhere. That is as far as it's going to go. Old bearing, thank you very much. Old bearing is now on the floor. Right, now let's put in the seal on the other side. So you should have noticed that this thing is not perfectly round on the outside edge. It's got like this cutout bit. This cutout bit allows the swivel ball to sweep around, the seal to sweep around. If I look at the original here, you can see it goes around the bottom edge nearest the axle casing, if you get my drift. So yeah, don't just bang these things in willy-nilly. They do need to go in a particular way round. I don't know why they did that. Right, I'm going to use the old swivel pin to bang this chap in. So there's the old swivel pin. Hear the tone change when it bottoms out. So that's that in. That's good. Old swivel pins, thank you very much. Get all this detritus out of the way, because one of the problems with using the old swivel pin is perhaps I could have cleaned some of the dirt and the rust off the top of it first of all, which is a little bit silly, but not so silly as I can't clear it up. Right, so now we have got the two key components are inside now that needs to be in the brand new swivel housing. Okay, beautiful, just fucking beautiful. That's located all around. I'm happy enough with that. Now we need to put the swivel housing on now, so let's go and get that. Get that out of the way. Go with the left hand one first. Oh. So basically we've got the pin in the bottom. I'm not going to change the pin. We'll put the bearing on. Once the bearing is on, then I'm going to lube it up, and then position the swivel housing over the top, put the pin in, and start to set the preload up. There's plenty of videos of me doing preloads, so I don't really need to video all of that. Just ends up with hours and hours and hours of me editing the preload out. Yeah, that's going to be fairly straightforward. Let me get on with that. We've got a nice new swivel pin here. Oops. We've got a nice new thrust pin that goes down the inside for the ABS sensor. We don't need to worry about that just yet. That's wrapped up in plastic. I know it just hit the floor, but it's wrapped up in plastic. It's important to put that chappy in. Right, nice new swivel pin. Nice new swivel pin. Don't forget the thrust washers and bits either. I'm going to go with all those in a second. But basically, just checking everything lines up. Bit of lube on there perhaps in a minute. There we are, everything lines up. Yeah, I'm happy enough with that. That's going to work. Right, so before we do that, what we need to do here is put the thrust components in. The parts manual, what I've basically found is that these two that I've been supplied are exactly the same as this quarter coat seal that goes in the bottom of the stub axle, what you're talking about, swivel ball, and this fella, which goes somewhere else, which I'm going to work out in a second. And I think it goes on the front. Now, the other thing that I found is this little bush goes in the top of the swivel pin, like that, okay, and it seals against all the crap. This obviously goes in first, okay, just bear that in mind. There is only one way to put these things in because they've got like a little lip on the end of them, so they're going from the top. Yeah, that's that. So I've got the thrust washer in the swivel housing now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move it up a little bit. Let's just get rid of some rubbish here. I want my grease. Where's my grease gone? Greasy my grease face. It's not very organised, Richard, is it? Right, so a little bit of grease around the thrust washer because I don't want it to run dry. There we go. That goes in there, and then a little bit of grease on the bottom bearing. This bottom bearing sits in its own oil anyway, but it just gives it a fighting chance, you know. It's not going to hurt it, is it? Oh, well, yes, it might, you're saying. No, I don't think it will actually. And we'll position that in there, and then we'll position the top swivel pin in. It's looking a bit tighter now. Right, now, what we're going to need to do now is to set the preload on this thing, as I've done 1,000 times before. So I just use a spring balance for this. I actually built these up on the bench. It just makes life a lot fucking easier, that's all. And it's easy enough to work out what it is I'm going to do here. So what I'll do, I'm going to start with the shims that were in here before. The two shims, I use that as my starting point, only because the swivel housing hasn't changed. It could well be this is entirely futile. I don't know. Got to start somewhere. So put the two shims on, position the pin back in, and then these are going to torque down to, I think it was 55 to 60 foot-pounds. I'll just double check that in the manual in a second. Obviously I've not put the brake top plate on or anything like that yet. Don't panic, folks, all of that will go on as part of the final assembly. But what I need to do first of all is to get the preload set right on the top swivel pin, which is the first thing I'm going to do. Somewhat amusingly, by this stage in production, and bear in mind we're quite a late classic here, by this stage in production, the sweep seal retaining bolts have moved from a quarter UNF to M6. Oh yeah, thank you. Luckily, I've got a little bag of M6 bolts here. They're M6, looks like M6 by 1 centimetre. Now, bearing in mind how much aggravation I had getting the bolts out. This is the left-hand hub, but bearing in mind how much aggravation I had getting the other side out, I am going to replace the bolts with new. Because the heads were kind of chewed up on them, and they really weren't looking very good at all. It's not really helping itself, is it? So, just bear that in mind. If you're doing a really late classic swivel, then the bolts are M6, not quarter UNF.